Hello and welcome to our podcast named Detours. This podcast embraces the unexpected twists and turns that shapes the journeys of our lives that God sends us down. I'm your host and fellow traveler, Mike. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Deb, and we invite you to join us on this exploration of uncharted territories we encounter along the way. So without further ado, let's dive into this episode. Detours family, hello and welcome to another episode. You guys know the drill. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Deb.
Hi, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are down the path of season number 4. We're a handful of episodes in.
We keep forgetting what episode we're on, so forgive us.
I have no idea. I haven't got a clue. But,
we'll have to look.
Yes, we have a special treat for you guys. We have a couple of friends here in studio with us. One of them is my wife's friend, Jenna. Jenna, say hello to everyone.
Hi, everyone.
And we also have Linda, another friend from the church here locally. Linda, say hello as well.
Hello.
Well, you guys, thank you for coming first and foremost. We
really appreciate it.
Yeah, we've been thinking about having you guys come in to our little studio here and do some podcast episodes with us. But before we do that, why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Jenna, well, I guess the common thread amongst all of us is we've moved to Brevard County.
From Broward.
Broward County. It's about 2.5 hour drive straight north from Fort Lauderdale to here. So, Jenna, when did you move up here?
In 2017.
17, okay.
Yeah.
And Linda, you?
I was 2021, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been here the longest,
Yeah.
and then Deb and I moved up here in 2020, and you were right behind.
Yeah.
Got it. Jenna, where do you go to church these days?
I am at church at Vieira.
Church at Vieira, and Linda, you are?
I go to Calvary Chapel, Vieira.
Calvary Vieira, okay.
Yeah.
And you ladies, you just did a ladies conference at one of the
Yes.
churches. Who's
At my church.
at your church?
Yeah, church
okay.
at Vieira. Yeah.
And you had a guest, Priscilla Schreier. You said,
They did a simulcast. It was excellent.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
nice. You guys had a good time?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's wonderful.
Always learn something from Priscilla.
Good.
Without a doubt.
Good. Glad to hear it. And so you've been here since 2021, and you said at Calvary Vieira.
Yes.
Nice. How do you like it over there? It's a good little church.
Yeah, I love. We have a pastor that stepped in from youth ministry to become the senior pastor, and it's been a really, really good
Nice.
change for the church. Yeah,
How big is that church these days?
I'm not sure.
Are you talking hundreds or thousands?
Probably in the thousands for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, so it's a pretty big church for being a small town.
Yeah. And what about?
Yours too.
Yeah,
Jenna.
no, ours is pretty large considering. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, my goodness, we've been friends. You guys had kind of a unique, somebody introduced, literally new, Deb, you came into the church as a guest. And
Yeah, I was like, hi, I'm brand new, blah, blah, blah. And he's just chatting with me. And I mentioned that I was from Broward County. And he's like, I have someone you might want to meet. And that was Jenna.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
We were fast friends. I don't know, 2019. Because it
Yeah.
was before you and I got back together.
Okay. It
Yeah.
was before I moved up even.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and your story was something. Someone introduced or knew Deb. What was that? Fill me in on that story, Linda.
Yeah, so I have a friend named Rachel. Shout out to Rachel for being the connector.
Matchmaker.
And
Yes.
friendship matchmaker. Thank you, Rach. But she had sent me, a message with a few friends that she knew lived up here. One of them was Deb. And one night I was actually talking to her and saying, I haven't really met anyone here. And she just, in her kind, sweet way that she does, was like, well, what about the list of people that I sent you? And I was like, oh, that, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't call me for like a couple years.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't until 2023.
Gee, I probably should look at this list again.
Yeah, so
Hard making friends. People give you lists.
Yeah, and then I don't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, true story though. I knew Linda from Fort Lauderdale, from that area too, and I knew that you were up here,
Yeah.
and I just didn't reach out to you for like a couple of years until we ended up reconnecting too.
Yeah,
I
I think.
doing the same thing.
Yeah, it was weird because I was on the brink of looking to leave Brevard County when Jenna reached out to me, and I, had that exhortation from Rachel to be like, well, reach out, you don't know.
And so you're staying
be
because of us?
Yes.
How awesome are we?
Yeah, hello.
How awesome are we? But I think that's a good segue into the episode that we want to talk about. It sort of stemmed from, hey, if you guys were going to come on the podcast, what would we talk about? Linda had some ideas, and we just sat around chatting, and
it morphed into this.
Yeah, definitely evolved into. I guess we're kind of describing it as authenticity in friendship versus being counterfeit. I think some of the things that we're talking about today can be applied to dating life, to
coworkers, family members. Yeah, it really is applicable in all relationships across the board. And I think anyone listening could find themselves in a point where they're like, oh, yeah, I have a relationship where these apply.
Yeah, so I think, and it's something that's so craved these days. I think all of us share something in common, which is Calvary Fort Lauderdale. And the amazing thing about Calvary Fort Lauderdale is the lead pastor there is definitely authentic. The
Yes.
person that you see up there, if anyone listening ever watches a Calvary Fort Lauderdale sermon, our lead pastor is named Pastor Doug Souter. And it just oozes out of him, the authenticity. What you see up on stage is who he is privately with his family. It's who goes on vacation and all of these things. And that's rare to find.
It is. And it's beautiful. And I think that's what people are attracted to in friendships and relationships is just show up as you are. Just show me who you are. I want to know the real you. I don't want to have to decipher through what you're presenting, what mask you're putting on to figure out if you're authentic.
So Linda, you mentioned you were potentially thinking of leaving because you couldn't find friends, authentic friends?
Yeah, well, I think it takes a little bit of time, for anyone to really acclimate to especially a new town. It's one thing to be in a new job. You are kind of organically thrown into situations where you have to, socialize and get to know your team. But when you're coming into a new town, it's a lot less organic. And when you're a part of a larger church like Calvary Vieira, sometimes you can get lost in the mix too, and you feel like you're not necessarily meeting people, the way you think or maybe should be. So I think it's a combination of that and my introvertedness, which Jenna and Deb have the opposite personalities, so they help me get out of my shell a little bit because I can tend to be like, oh, it's fine, I'll just be at home on my computer in my pajamas and I'm perfectly happy. But meanwhile, I do crave that genuine connection,
For sure.
And I think it's becoming harder and harder to find, so that's kind of what we want to talk about today is let's first define what authenticity is. I don't want to assume that even the audience or even myself that I fully understand just how deep something like that is. So
That's an unpacking. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Let's start peeling that back.
Yeah. I think what I said of really showing up the way you are and not being, you know what? People present themselves with masks all the time. And I think that's somewhat normal in social settings. But being able to talk about hard things, I think is a clear sign of authenticity. Speaking the truth in love is an authentic behavior. Learning that you are perfectly imperfect and just presenting the world with who you are and not who you're trying to pretend to be. That's kind of some of my definitions. I'm sure you guys can chime into authenticity as well.
Yeah, I will say that I can be socially awkward, even though I'm an extrovert. And I also can overshare when I'm first meeting somebody because I get social anxiety. And then that can have me overthinking. And one of the things I'll just whisper a prayer to God when I'm walking into a situation, like, what do you want me to do, God? Like, who do you want me to be, or who am I here for? And I always get this sense of just be Jenna, just do you, just be Jenna. And then I will know if somebody authentically does like me and does want to be my friend or work with me or whatever the case may be. And that way I don't have to keep up a facade if I'm trying to be something that somebody else would want me to be. So
I think one of the two of you, I don't remember who it was, Jenna or Linda, one of you guys mentioned Mean Girls. Who was it?
Oh, it was me.
Yeah. So let's talk
Yeah.
about this. So this is what authenticity definitely is not. This was kind of how you were explaining it.
Yeah. So, there's a character in Mean Girls named Regina George, and she is kind of a queen bee, so to speak, so she is a popular girl and everybody seems to like her and want to be her, But there's a scene in which she tells the protagonist, I guess, in the story, oh, I really love your bracelet. And she thinks, oh, she's such a great person. I love her. She's so nice. But later in the movie, you see her talking about another girl, and she'll say to the girl, it's such a cute skirt. But, then tells, her friends kind of behind this girl's back, I don't like her skirt. It's awful. It's ugly. And so it's like, it's hard coming from that kind of environment. Maybe if you're used to Mean Girls in high school, or even I've had those types of encounters at work. I've had, strangely, I've had encounters like that in my adult life, that then you really, fear whether this person is truly coming across as just nice or if they're genuinely a good person and they actually.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest things too is we do that, and we see that within the church. That's what do we do with that? How do you react when you see that happening? That's always a tough subject, because we're not supposed to act that way. We are not supposed to gossip. We are not supposed to, we are called to be authentic. Authentic love is one of the values of Calvary Chapel. And that can be tough because you see a lot of people within the church. It can become very cliquey. Even just people become so defensive over what seat they're sitting in because they sit in the same spot every single week.
You're in my spot.
Yeah. And that authentic love is definitely not there. So what do you guys do to help sift that sort of thing out to find true authentic friendship? I know we talked about just time, the gift of time.
I mean, for me, it was me praying that God would send me my people. And that's part of me and Deb's story. Is I was feeling the same way that you were feeling, Linda, because when I first moved here, I was going to Calvary Chapel Vieira, and I was having a difficult time getting plugged in as well. And I was serving and singing and doing Bible studies. I mean, I was doing all the things I was supposed to, but I didn't feel like I was meeting my people or the people that God wanted in my life. And so I prayed. I'm like, God, show me who my people are. Now me and Deb, it was very easy to be authentic because we're both two Italian girls, and it just was very easy. And there was that authenticity. It was kind of like I could be who I am fully when I'm around her.
You can show you're crazy.
I could show you my crazy.
Love it.
And you embraced it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
She
it
even
felt like
top your
home.
crazy sometimes, it would be crazy contests.
Well, and we often talk about, like, in our family dynamic, it's like you could really just get yelled at and, like, you get into a fight and all of it's put out on the table, and then you're fine because there's nothing that's being hidden. Like, if you don't like something, just say it. I don't like that. And then everyone knows where they stand.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, it was actually Pastor Doug, because I used to work for him with an organization for Kids of South Florida. And he did a little survey in the room, and he said, anybody in here that always knew where you stood with your family, raise your hand. And I was shocked when it was like me and only two other people in a room of 30 that I'm like, wait, everybody doesn't say how they feel at every moment that they feel it and express and emote and, share too much all the time. But that is authentically who I am and what we were raised in. So I feel like
we definitely clicked over that.
Yeah.
For sure.
And God knew that and gave me somebody that I don't ever walk away. And I think this is when you know you're being authentic too. This is a point, is when you walk away from someone and you're not rethinking about your conversation. You're not thinking to yourself, did I say that wrong? Did I say too much? Like, you kind of walk away going, oh, I stuck my foot in my, like, you don't have any of that. Like, I was just me, and me was completely accepted. And that's what Jesus does, right? I didn't clean myself up before I came to the Lord. He accepted me, warts and all.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
I love that.
My experience, because I'm a little bit more of a stuffer than maybe Jenna and
Spewers
Deb.
versus a stuffer. Okay.
Yeah, them definitely. But I remember when I reconnected with Jenna, and it must have been the middle of the afternoon, but I think we closed down this poor coffee shop and still stayed there for another couple of hours on the patio, just catching up and just being real with each other. From the moment she sat down on the couch next to me, she just was genuine, authentic about everything that she had been going through. Mm-hmm. And it allowed me to be authentic.
Yes.
Because, when you're around somebody that is like she described, somebody that's just going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, you're able to then do the same yourself. And you feel less alone in the world because you know that someone else has those same feelings, thoughts, emotions, maybe life experiences.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
You're not crazy.
Yeah.
We're crazy.
Yeah. And same with Deb. We met, I think we met for coffee, and we ended up getting like
coffee, dinner. We were out for like hours upon hours. And the conversation really was very, pretty deep conversation for just meeting each other, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
There was like, here, this is who I am. And I think the church wants to be authentic, but when you are so afraid of what people are going to think, and I don't have it all together. Yeah, nobody has it all together. Nobody. If you just kind of share those vulnerable moments instead of saying, I'm fine, people give like almost that permission, like you said, permission to be who you are because they're being opened. And I think we had that click right away. Yeah, and I really appreciate that.
And for me, it's a different perspective on it. I'm less open about things because I don't want my problems becoming someone else's problems. So that's a very fine line that I'm always conscious of is what is the purpose of this conversation? If it's just me to vent, then I'll let you know that right up front. Just, hey, Deb, had a bad day at work. Can you just listen? And actually, she does that really well with me also. But I also, if I need to get something out of the conversation, there's going to be a very small pool of people that I actually will open up to. My father's one of my best friends, our mentor at Calvary. I got a buddy that lives in Colorado, but just these people that have paid that price of admission in my life where they're not going to look at it as, oh, Snyder, he's got another problem and he's just dumping this on me. But he is, or they, all three of those guys are very authentic. They'll listen, and I can trust the vulnerability with them. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that I'm also very aware of is not just, here's my crazy. I think that in and of itself is crazy for me. But, it's okay to laugh, Jenny. Okay. It's okay. But, I'm also very aware of that. So I'm very calculated with who I have certain conversations with.
And that's wise. And I've seen a consistency with these men in your life. And that's part of the thing we talked about even as we're preparing for this is that time reveals people's motives, people's character. Consistency counts. And these people are in your life, and when you said pay the admission, it's because they give good counsel. They always bring you back to the Lord. They always are looking for the best interest of you and your growth and your development. Not what makes you comfortable, not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And that's important in authenticity and in friendships and all relationships.
Yeah, I think authenticity breeds authenticity, right? Like you were saying, Linda, about I was vulnerable and transparent with you, and then that made you feel comfortable. But to your point too, Michael, I think the verse that came to me was, don't throw your pearls before the swine. I've had to learn in my life too to have discretion, and for me, it's a little easier because I kind of don't care if everybody knows my crazy and knows my stories, and I'm not necessarily a private person. So for me, it could be broadcasted, and I'd be like, yeah, that's me. That's what I did. That's who I am.
Denying the introvert.
Right. There's that open book, closed book kind of personality, right?
And that's more me. So it doesn't affect me, I think, the same way of an introvert.
Yeah. And I do have to, as an introvert, though, come to a realization of when I'm also stuffing things down, and Deb and I had a conversation a couple of days ago where something's been on my mind for 9 months now, and I haven't expressed it at all because, again, I don't want to burden someone, or maybe it's a little, it's an intrusive thought or something. And she was able to, counsel me because I know she's a godly person. She's able to, and she's been through similar life experiences. I know that I can come to her and trust her to give me wise counsel, and she's not here like, oh, it's okay, just slay queen, do what live your truth, I also don't want that kind of friend that's just going to tell me, like you said, everything I want to hear. Right. I want people to not only be in my corner, but also, take me out of my shell, so to speak, if it's necessary.
Yeah, and it's also, I also have a pair of friends that are in Fort Lauderdale who aren't saved, but I absolutely throw into that authentic bucket. Now, everything that they say, I have to, no matter who it is, my father, anybody, you always filter it through Scripture. But there absolutely is a place, you don't have to isolate yourself just to Christians on something like this. Deb, I think the couple of people that I'm talking about.
I
you
do.
know them, but just such authentic. What you see is what you get. Very well spoken, servant hearts, just amazing
yes.
people. So even that, you can turn to, those types of people, but I always have to take that back to Scripture. How do you know if a line is curved or not? You hold it up to a straight line. So everything that these people, whether they're saved or not, I always take that back to prayer, back to the Word to go, hey, is there, is this kosher? Is this good to go? Can I act on something like this?
And like I said before, they are looking for your best interest.
They are. There's never any question when they come back to me or they push or, because we have different worldviews, we have lots of different views on different things, but I always know where they're coming from. They don't hide anything, and they always have very, precise logic as to why they believe something. I may believe something different, but it's an amazing relationship because of it. Very authentic. It's one of those that if I went back and saw them tomorrow, we'd pick right back up where we left off, even though I moved away, whatever it's been 4 years ago or so. But authentic friends, the yin to the yang is counterfeit.
Yeah.
And I think this whole conversation actually started, Linda, from just kind of like some thoughts that you had written down. You're single and you were, going about having some thoughts about what it's like to be Christian and getting out there in the dating world. And this all kind of stemmed from that. So how do you navigate finding, a man that's authentically chasing after Jesus versus a counterfeit, that kind of thing? What types of things are you looking for?
Yeah. So, well, first and foremost, of course, somebody that loves the Lord. But I think it goes a little bit deeper where I've recognized kind of some patterns in my life where I may have dated somebody that, checked off all the boxes faith-wise, but may still kind of operate in a worldly way, so to speak. So maybe it's somebody that's more of a yes man, or somebody that is people-pleasing, or somebody that's being inauthentic with the true person that they are, who they're portraying themselves to be versus who they actually are. And so I think those things can only be revealed through time and through spending time having those hard conversations. So now I more or less just am no longer shying away from the difficult conversations that need to be had in the dating process. That maybe in the past I was more of the people pleaser, where I was trying to not step on landmines that may cause that person to leave, or, may cause them to suddenly lose interest in the relationship. Now I realize that that's actually God's grace in it, in knowing, we're having these difficult conversations around authenticity, around your life, not only as a Christian, but as a human, and what does that look like then, when it comes to the integrity of this person and how they're carrying themselves when no one is looking versus when everyone's looking.
Right. Oh, so true. And only time can tell that. And I think getting back to people pleasing, because I think a lot of people don't realize how, it looks so pretty. It looks so nice. It looks like, wow, what a great person this is. But people pleasing is a way that people avoid conflict because they are insecure with themselves, and they would rather yes you than to do the right thing. And it's dangerous. It becomes very dangerous because they don't set healthy boundaries for themselves. And you see them running in circles to please everyone, and they've done nothing to take care of themselves, all for the sake of an image, because they want that reputation of being the good guy or the servant heart. And yeah, you can serve, but you can also serve from a wrong motive. If the motive isn't to glorify Jesus, and the motive isn't an overflow of the abundance of love in your heart, and you're simply serving so that you can be seen, or because you don't want to make somebody mad, or you feel obligated, then that's not authentic. And those people burn out real quick, real fast.
Yeah, and I think, if you learn, there's lots of things you can learn from Jonah's story. And one of the things that we were talking about prior to this was one of the lessons of Jonah is when you have something that needs to be said, the longer you wait, the worse it gets. Mm-hmm. God's still going to ask you to have that conversation. And kind of going on what you just said, think of, someone that is a yes man or woman. You're dating them and they're, all they do is say yes. Well, that gets more problematic when you get married. And then all of a sudden you have kids and they can't say no to the kids, and it's more problem. So the longer you wait to have those difficult conversations, think about it from a work perspective. You're an employee. It might get you noticed that you're saying yes to everything and you're getting things done. But the minute you get promoted and you have people working underneath you, now all of a sudden, instead of being the umbrella that protects your employees, you're the one that's running behind them going, hey, I'm volunteering Linda to do this. And Linda's sitting there going, Mike, why did you just commit me to this?
The voluntolding, you mean?
Yes, that's what I like to call it. Volunforced.
Yes. And, Calvary Fort Lauderdale, we're getting ready to launch a brand new website. And I told one of my employees, I said, I want to come alongside you as we actually build this out. I know, kind of as the lead on this, it's not exactly my job anymore, but I need to know what it takes you to do it. So I want you to assign me things that I need to do on this website, because when I ask you to do things, I need to understand it's going to take X number of hours. It takes, project manager and this, that, and the other. And I don't want to be sitting in my office. Hey, this looks good on paper, but I have no idea how to execute it. So I want to go that extra mile to understand what's happening so that I can be an authentic leader. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the longer you wait to have those conversations,
and then your mind starts to snowball too. I mean, think about the 9 months you spent not saying what you needed to say, the propensity for bitterness. And I speak that over myself too. I can do this, where I've now created scenarios in my mind that have snowballed, and I haven't arrested the thoughts that I'm supposed to arrest and give them to Jesus. And then by month 9, I'm pissed. I'm mad. Where if I would have approached it, and brought the feelings up to Jesus first and kind of filtered through and been like, Lord, am I all right with these feelings? Is this true? and then had the hard conversation, there would be less propensity to mentally sin. Because I know that I can do that. I can mentally sin and assume the worst of someone when I could have just had the conversation. And I'm usually pretty good about getting those conversations out. And then there's those ones where you're like, well, will this yield any fruit? Will this be hard? And then I could talk myself out of it. So my habit is to do it, but there are those times I don't. And every time I don't, I get bitter.
There's some animal facts that I learned the other day.
Interesting. Do share.
Might be, interesting to this scenario. So I learned about buffalo. Oh. And buffalo, when they see a storm coming, they head towards the storm because they've learned that if you face it, you'll go through it a lot quicker than trying to run in the opposite direction with that storm chasing you. It'll eventually catch up and then you will be exhausted.
Amen.
And so I guess the lesson here is just be like buffalo.
Yeah.
All right. Mike, roll the credits for the podcast. I think we're good. Be like
Mic drop. We're done.
But it is true. What's the saying? When you go through hell, you go through hell. Don't sit there and run from it. It's coming. Don't delay the inevitable. It's better to just turn and face it. But it's so easy to say that. The last episode that we just did with a young lady from our church, Savannah, and her mother, Muriel, Savannah had this amazing testimony of coming out of alcoholism and all sorts of things. But as a mother watching, and that is the storm that's coming, is all the baggage that comes with alcoholism. There was, opportunities for cocaine and the wrong kind of men chasing her daughter. It's one thing to sit there and say, it's time to run into the storm. It's another when it's something as meaningful and precious as your daughter, and it's, alcoholism thing. So this is easy to say, but it's difficult to do. But every time you muster up the courage and you turn to God and you say, okay, we're going to do this, you're better off.
Yeah.
So,
you build it like a muscle.
Yeah. That's critical. And I think the other point we just kind of introduced it, but we never dove into it, was counterfeits. Counterfeits are designed to look like the real thing. That's why book smarts versus street smarts, right? This is kind of in the street smarts area, right? Your pawn shop, you got to be able to spot a counterfeit really quickly. So how, what are the types of things?
What's interesting is when you're doing that, you're not studying the counterfeit, you're studying the real thing so that you can spot the counterfeit.
Yeah. Jim Caviezel said that about, I don't remember what he was doing. He's the guy that played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. And he was talking about working on another project. I don't remember what it was. He was playing Satan, or he was playing something that was pure evil. And he absolutely said, to prep for the role, I didn't go study evil. I went and studied Christ. I went and studied him, because anything that's not that, that's the counterfeit. So I have to know the real thing.
That's true.
So, and that can be hard to spot in friends. And even then, now you have the emotional attachment with this person and you find out, oh my goodness, they're a counterfeit. That can make things hard to walk away from, right?
Friends, husbands, parents, all relationships. And I think it's important to, because confession, as I am transparent, I struggle with people pleasing, and my place of struggle doesn't come from wanting to be a fake or a phony or a counterfeit. It's acceptance and love is usually what I'm seeking. That's the root of my people pleasing. And then I abandon myself and I suffer for not being authentic to myself. But as far as counterfeits, I know in my life, it's like you said, you have to know who Jesus is to really know what the counterfeit is, because it does it's like a dollar bill that's been counterfeit. Like, you don't know. And then you got to be trained on, we hold it up to the light. We see if it's real. It's not a dollar. What is it? They do it with 20s. But, you get what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then you have to train yourself to know the difference. But listen, the devil disguises himself as an angel of light.
That's true.
And sometimes I think for me, I can say I am just at the mercy of God and pray that he exposes the counterfeit to me, that he exposes the truth. Sometimes it happens quickly, and other times I know we say time will tell. It takes a long time, and God is slow sometimes with some of us because he knows we're all his children and he knows our hearts. And just like my people pleasing isn't coming from a place of wanting to be a fake or a phony at all. Like, I feel like my whole life I want to build it upon being real. But God has to get in my heart, and through a lot of therapy and realizing why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think sometimes too, people don't even know why they are faking it or why they are trying to, sorry, I just had a blooper. My earring fell off while I was talking. Now everybody knows that, and that distracted me. But yes, the counterfeit that I feel like we need to give some mercy and grace to. I don't think everybody is aware that they're even doing it.
Oh, I agree.
It's like the Pharisees. Did the Pharisees know that they were Pharisees? Like, they were religious?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I do. I think there is some grace that people just don't have they don't always have the emotional intelligence to know that they're running from something, or that they're masking past pain, or they're viewing life through a lens of lots of different things, trauma, pain, regrets. Yeah. There is some grace, but there's also like, I'm not here to be your therapist either, Yeah,
my old when I was a teacher, I had an assistant principal at one of my Christian schools that would ask the question whenever we would go into a meeting with a student that was being just blatantly rebellious, let's say. It wasn't every student that was academically, struggling, but it was the blatant rebellion. He would ask the question, is this student that we're dealing with right now a wolf in sheep's clothing, or are they a wounded sheep? Because those are two very different things.
Yes.
Oftentimes there was a wounded sheep there that was coming from a broken home and didn't, was too young to know how to express themselves, but still needed to take accountability nonetheless. But at the time needed more grace than, discipline, so to speak. And it really did depend on the scenario. And yes, we did have some wolves in sheep's clothing as well, where it played out in the reverse, where it was a very manipulative student that was, kind of working all of the teachers to their benefit to get out of some consequences that would otherwise be dealt out. So,
yeah, I think, it really just boils down to the heart behind everything. It's, the thought processes, so on and so forth. The wounding can be in the head, where, it's a battered wife syndrome, and, there's all sorts of things. So for me, authenticity versus counterfeit is always a matter of the heart, right? We're called to, chase after Jesus. It's always chase after his heart. There are more important things in this life than right and wrong. Deb and I can get into colorful fellowship, and
I love that.
Even if I'm right, if my heart behind it is in the wrong place, I've lost the argument, and vice versa, right? Mm-hmm. There's more important things than right and wrong. And, every one of those people that I talked about earlier, my father, our mentor, my buddy in Colorado, certainly Deb, my couple of unsaved friends in Fort Lauderdale, I know their heart. And their heart, whatever they do, even if it was wound up being completely wrong, I knew that the heart behind it was they were absolutely trying their best. And maybe maybe it didn't turn out the way it was supposed to, but I like to think that I could trust Deb with anything. If all of a sudden we had to pick up and move to California, I could send her on a plane to California and go, Deb, pick out a good home for us. I trust that you will do the best you can. And she would, you know, if for some reason I couldn't make it. And I think that really is the authenticity versus counterfeit, is where are the motives? Because over time, when you have impure motives, you will get impatient and so on and so forth. And that will rear its head, and you'll find out, okay, that's that red flag with the heart. Instead of a wounded sheep.
Yeah, I think it's that verse when, you know, David says, search me, O God, and know my anxious heart, like know what's inside of me. Because I don't even know sometimes. I really do. I go to the Lord and I'm like, I know that I have to repent of something. I'm not even self-aware to know what it is that I'm doing. So show me. And he's faithful, and he has. And it's not easy.
It's hard.
It's hard, but there's freedom on the other side of it. And there's peace on the other side of it. And there's reconciliation on the other side of it. And there's authenticity, right?
Yeah.
And on the other side of that.
But you got to work for it.
Yes.
It's not like you can just, you know, dear Jesus, show me where I'm wrong. He shows you, and then it's fixed. A lot of times there's just tremendous uprooting that has to happen that is long processes. I mean, Deb, you've talked occasionally about Trees of Hope and just kind of your involvement in that program. And both Linda and Jenna, you guys are familiar with the program, and that's an understatement. Yeah. You guys understand what the depths of that program is. It's a very touchy subject.
Sexual abuse prevention and sexual abuse healing for someone maybe just chiming in for the first time and not heard us talk about it.
Yeah, and Deb, you've talked openly about just that program and how you went through it twice. I mean, that was not just like a one and done few months type of thing. That was just part of a massive pursuit on your behalf that you had to do over years.
Checking a box. Now I'm healed. I wish it was that easy, but the Lord uprooted deep fallacies in my thinking and showed me very tenderly how wounded my heart actually was, and how much he wanted to provide all the things I was seeking for: the love, the validation, value, and worth. Like, it wasn't a process of just, I wish healing was easy. There were times where there were mountaintops, and there were times where I felt like I was in a pit and I couldn't get out of bed. And I thought, gosh, how can I endure this? And he would always tenderly come alongside me and pick me up and dust me off and say, you got this, daughter, because you're with me. And that's hard, but it would have been, I would never have healed from this had I not done the co-laboring with Jesus. It's not like you have to work. You have to do the hard work and be willing to see the ugly, and be willing to step into the depths of the pain and look at your own depravity and go, ooh, that's ugly, Lord. I need that to change. And I want that to change. Only you can help me do that. What's the next step? And that's the heart of God. He wants us to grow and heal and do the hard work.
It takes courage to do that. It takes a whole lot of courage to even ask somebody, right, a friend, and go to them and say, okay, what do you see in me that you think I could do better or be better? And obviously between husband and wife, having those hard conversations of going, hey, is there anything that I'm doing, that I could do better for you, or that's hurting you or offending you, and having those vulnerable conversations, those real conversations, and then being willing to hear it and then actually do something about it. And then that again lends to, I think, authenticity versus people pleasing or counterfeit. I don't think somebody who is a counterfeit or someone who has motives that aren't for connection and would come to you and say, hey, I think that's if we're going to compile some kind of like maybe checklist or things that we can look for, I think that's a good thing on the list, is to, if somebody's not coming to you with confession, and someone's not coming to you and saying, hey, is there something I can do better to improve this relationship? I think if somebody's doing that, that's a good indicator that they're authentic and they want a real relationship.
Yeah. And I think we also can't assume that because you're in a church that someone is authentic. Sadly, people will walk into a church with that expectation.
Yep.
And the reality is, and they may even be Christian, but there's a sanctification process. You can be full-fledged, saved for 20 years and still make mistakes. But, the people in the United States are typically Christian because they're a U.S. citizen. Sadly, if you were to walk the streets, 7 out of every 10 people in the United States would say they're a Christian. But there was a Barna study that was done just about 5 years ago. So it's a little bit outdated, but the numbers are so overwhelming that I'm sure it hasn't changed much.
Right.
Where when, they were asked probably the 10 most basic questions about Christianity, like, do you believe in the Trinity? So on and so forth. Do you believe the Bible is without error and it's the word of God? Yes or no? There's 10 simple questions like that were asked. That 70% dropped down to 3%. So,
tremendous drop.
So 67% were counterfeit right out of the gate. And that's where things like, again, Linda and I are data people, so we love diving into this. Deb, we were just having casual conversation the other day, and you were talking about how divorce rates are still 50% within the church. And I kind of had to raise my hand and we'll go, well, hey, that's not really true. What that is the 7 out of every 10 people that identify as Christians, that rate is the same. But when someone answers the questions correctly, like, yes, I believe the Bible is the word of God. Yes, I believe in the Trinity. Yes, I believe Jesus came and died for my sins. And one of the questions was, do you go to church at least once a month? Once people made it through those 10 questions, divorce rates dropped all the way to 12%. So even just, are you a Christian, yes or no? And it kind of circling almost all the way back to the origin of this conversation, Linda, which was kind of dating and so on and so forth. In your eyes, to find an authentic potential husband or wife, to find someone that's authentic is very difficult, because 7 out of 10 people will go, oh yeah, sure, I'm a Christian, let's go on a date. When in reality, that pool is significantly smaller and it might take you 1 or 2 dates to figure it out, or
Hopefully
even more.
That's all it takes is 1 or 2 dates.
But it's something you do have to fight for, is authenticity, 100%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a big part of at least the dating culture is, it's gone to a lot of online, right? There's a lot of online dating now, which breeds kind of inauthenticity, because there's a profile, you can manicure it however you'd like, and kind of portray yourself in a very specific way that you want others to see you as. It's similar to, I don't know if you've seen these scams from, before Amazon really cracked down on this, that folks would go on there and put something, let's say a dining room chair, and it would be, let's say $15, and people would be very excited, a dining room chair for $15, and then it would come and it would be like a little dollhouse chair, that they had purchased because they hadn't looked at all the specifications, maybe the height, the width. I mean, why would you, unless you were really measuring that out? And so it's easy to maybe portray yourself a certain way, but getting down to the root of who is this person really is just, it takes time. It takes asking the right questions.
It doesn't.
Difficult questions, and maybe being a little uncomfortable.
And the another perspective to that too is, are you seeing what you want to see? Because if I can steal your Amazon analogy, one of the funniest things I ever saw was someone that literally went on Amazon, and the description, the title of the item they were selling was the PlayStation 4 box. And people got into a bidding war. They didn't even read the title, and they thought it was the actual PlayStation. They ended up paying hundreds of dollars. And he flat out said in the title of the item, this is just the box.
Wow.
And they paid hundreds of dollars, So how many times are people actually telling, but you're going, oh, but I can change that person, or who knows, insert any number of excuses, but the title literally told you you're getting nothing but a box here.
Yeah,
so it goes both ways.
That is one of the things that they'll say. a manipulator, you know, a guy who's a player, we'll say, you know, someone who has other motives, they will lead with that. They will say, hey, I told you, you know, what my intentions were. I told you I didn't want anything serious, but I'm open to if it might happen in the future. You know, they kind of lead with that. And then you will get sucked into and to thinking I can change them, or, you know, they're open to something maybe, but then they go ahead and play you.
Yeah.
And then they say, I told you in the beginning, you know, this is who I am. It was a box, you know, like they that is part of the tactic of the manipulator.
But we see what we want to see because denial is seducing. Denial is so seducing. Like, you want it to be true. You want them to be who you think they can be. And I think women tend to see potential. I see so much potential.
Guilty.
Yeah. And we're falling in love with potential.
Right.
And we're falling in love with the fantasy of what this person could be
right.
instead of who they actually are.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you say that the first person we need to be authentic with is ourselves?
Yes.
And let's all start there. Yeah.
And we surround ourselves with people who can see things we don't see and be willing to hear it. Like, be willing to hear, I know this is what you think you see, but listen, this is what's happening. And you have to have friends that are willing to do hard conversations with you. And I always go back to that verse, faithful are the wounds of a friend. It's like, if you just tell me what I want to hear, you're not really my friend. You're a yes man. And I need people who will go, no, that's not what's happening here. Take a look at this. And, you know, be tender, but also be firm. Like, no, you're not seeing it right.
When I start dating someone, just so that if he's hearing this podcast now, you will have to go through the gauntlet of Michael, Deb, and Jenna.
Amen.
At least, if not 15 additional people.
And if she sounds very attractive, you can text her at 555-5555.
But it's amazing how you can crave authenticity so much that you do see it in places where it's not. You know, we do crave that friendship where, you know, my buddy in Colorado, we can go 6 months and not talk to one another because he's married, he's got a couple kids, Deb and I are in the middle of remodeling our house, and next thing you know, you turn around and it's been 6 months, but I know I can pick up the phone and call my buddy and it'll just be like nothing ever happened. Like, hey, what's going on, man? How you doing? And you know, it's very, and once you can get to that level of authenticity, then the amount of work it takes to maintain that friendship also drops off.
Good point.
But it's also like you go to the Army, right? Those guys, they're gonna knock you down on your rear end right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And they put you through the gauntlet, and later down the road, at some point, they'll flip the switch and all of a sudden they become human and they have that relationship, that mentor level. But at first, you got to be tough. Think about your kids. You got to be parent first before you be friend.
Absolutely.
You can be a friend down the road when they can sit in a restaurant and behave themselves and order properly. And this, you have to teach them all of that. And then down the road, be friends. But
much later down the road.
But can I counter that a little bit though? Because I also feel though sometimes rules without relationship will cause rebellion also.
And that's interesting because that's one of the differences between men and women is men, it's respect.
Okay.
Women, it's relationship.
Yeah.
You know, so if as the man of the house, if you don't respect the house that I've built and the safety that Deb and I have created and so on and so forth, all of a sudden you're a threat.
Wow.
On some level or another, you're a threat.
Right.
But like Deb craves relationship though too, significantly.
Yeah, she's going to respect you.
Yeah.
That respect is going to come very natural for her because relationally you're filling up her cup, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's interesting dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when it comes to kids, though, there was something that Michael had said earlier, but I think sometimes, especially if you're dealing right now with a teenager or adult child, it's really important to know that sometimes you can win the argument and lose the person.
Yeah.
This is something that, a friend of mine named Emily recently shared with me when I was struggling with something I disagreed with my daughter. And she just said, be careful not to lose the person in the quest to be right.
Yeah, I think that's what I meant earlier when I said there's more important things than right and wrong.
Yeah.
I can win an argument with Deb, but all of a sudden I've created a barrier between the two of us where all of a sudden she doesn't feel safe anymore. Yeah. And okay, great. I won an argument, big deal, but I've taken a step back as a protector and a safe space. We've taken some of that element away. Yeah. So there's always interesting, boundaries.
Again, and that's probably something to cover too and look deeper into is how women view authenticity and how women view counterfeits versus men, because we are looking at the world in a very different way. God has created us so differently in that respect too. So I don't think it's just kind of like a blanket statement.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, and everyone, we all have our own idiosyncrasies too.
Yes.
But that's where Deb understands what those are for me, and I understand what those are for her. And there are things that we're not in a contract. Her and I are in a covenant.
Yeah.
So
Big difference.
Big, huge difference.
You're stuck with me.
I'm stuck with you, and you're stuck with me. But it does work. I mean, we have a podcast because we authentically enjoy spending time with one another. You add to me and I add to you. And, like Calvary Fort Lauderdale, we're finishing the book of Matthew. For those that don't know, Calvary Chapel is a verse-by-verse study of the Bible. And we're finishing the book of Matthew. And the next book we're going into is the book of 1 Samuel. And I love the fact that you and I did the book of 1 Samuel, and right at the very beginning of 1 Samuel is Hannah and her prayer. And I think I've even talked about, Bible commentaries, for the most part, they're all written by men. And I would read these commentaries on the mindset of Hannah when she's going through getting ready to pray, and she gets accused of being drunk, and it was a
Drunk
man that
crazy.
And so I put down the commentaries because men were very methodical, were very calculated, so on and so forth. And so all the commentaries were all calculated. And I said, Deb, let's sit down and have a conversation. What is it like to be Hannah in these scenarios? And I learned so much more by sitting down and having an authentic conversation with someone that I respect and I can trust to just sit and just gave that much more depth to the word.
Yeah. It's a perspective that you don't know you don't have until you sit down with someone of the opposite gender and someone you love and respect and say, oh, let me see it from your angle.
Yeah.
And I love those conversations.
Yeah, there's a funny video going around online right now where it seems like a teenage, maybe young adult boy, and he just kind of says, hey, can somebody explain to me what the luteal phase is? Is that like a moon thing? What is the luteal phase? And so I just thought that was funny because it has to do with the woman's menstrual cycle, but where in the world
just
would a man
wondering, Michael?
I was wondering exactly what that was.
Yeah. So, maybe I need an education.
Yeah.
We'll do that offline.
Yeah,
sure.
We'll do that
Not
offline.
on the podcast, but I just thought it was funny that he was genuinely asking, please, ladies, let me know what this is.
Yeah, because he was trying to date her, and she's like, you're in my wrong phase right now. Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
But yeah, authenticity is something, it's just constant pursuit. But once you find it, it is a beautiful thing. Then the apologies when something does happen, the apologies are so much easier to accept because the heart.
Yeah.
When a mistake is made, the heart.
Yeah.
When I'm being vulnerable, it's easier to come to you because I know the heart, and I know that you're as close to authentic as I can find. Deb, there's so much of my life that I just trust to you. Same thing with my dad. I know those areas in my life where, Dad, you're just the guy that I talk to. My buddy Greg out in Colorado. Greg, you're the phone call that I'm making because I can trust you with this area of my life. So authenticity, it is hard to find. I mean, I literally have named 5 people And I'm 40 something years old. I don't even know.
You don't know how old you are?
43. I'm 43 years old, and
He's
I have 5.
calculating my age and subtracting.
Yes. Yes, I have to bust your chops.
All the time.
But yeah, I'm 43 and I have 5 people in my life. That's it. 5 people.
Quality versus quantity, though.
I was going to say, me and Deb just recently had a conversation where, as I'm trying to break away from my people pleasing, I don't think I would have done it maybe a month ago, but we were just having a conversation, and in the conversation, something upset me, but I said it right then and there. And right then and there, you apologized, and it didn't. That was it. It was over in that moment. I risked it. I risked it.
Yeah.
And
she set a boundary, and it was like, oh, that hurt her, and I owned it and apologized, and we were able to move on. Like the next day, we went out and hung out all day.
I would say even within the phone conversation, it was literally, I said it, she apologized, it was over, and it was repaired, and we were moving on to something else.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And sorry, this may open up Pandora's box, so forgive me if this is a
She's going back to the buffaloes again.
That's right, yes. Or as the National Park Service calls them, the fluffy cows.
The fluffy cows.
Yes. But I just want to throw this out here to the rest of the team. How do you know when to walk away if someone is inauthentic?
That is definitely another episode that
Part
Deb
2.
and I, we've been talking about, is the friendship breakup. That is at least an episode, probably multiple episodes. So why don't we end here? Because that may be a great place if you guys don't mind coming back.
Yeah.
Linda, you did open Pandora's box,
Yeah,
so
sorry.
let's go there as the saying goes. But yeah, I think kind of wrapping things up. Just authenticity is absolutely worth fighting for, and you can't get frustrated. There are hills that you die on, and there are hills that you don't.
Yes.
And authenticity in friends, and especially spouses. We've said it on this show before, and we'll say it again. Part of the reason, Deb, why we're coming up on 5 years, why we truly are just happy, is because neither one of us compromised, and we found authenticity in that. And so, it's been a wonderful blessing, but, counterfeits and authenticity is definitely out there in the world, and it's worth talking about. And,
I agree.
But thank you, ladies, for coming on. Like I said, we'd love to have you back, and maybe we start right where Linda left us off.
Yeah.
The friendship breakup, especially inside the church. My goodness, when divorce or relationships end, there's all sorts of friendship breakups, and there's a lot to say there.
Yes.
But thank you guys so much. Jenna, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Miss Linda, always a pleasure hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, we
fun being
appreciate
here.
you guys.
Thank you.
Ditto.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So, guys, we will potentially be picking up with the friendship breakups here in the next episode. We'll let Linda lead that one, and maybe there's some friendships that she needs breaking up with here.
Oh, boy.
But we'll pick it up where we left off. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you in the next episode.